Good evening to all the parents who are attending the session today, and a very warm welcome to Dr. Pandey. Our school aims for holistic development, and the Mental Health Club, My Mind Matters, is another step towards achieving it. The club aims to give a platform to all the stakeholders to have an interaction. Parents are always an important part of a child's growth, and parenting is a dynamic process. I thank Dr. Pandey, who graciously agreed to hold this session, particularly for the parents, on the topic preparing the world within for the world outside. So, without wasting more time, I pass on the virtual mic to Dr. Pandey. Over to you, sir.
Namaste. We have come a long way since we thought about education as information. In fact, today itself, I was deeply moved when one of the parent wrote a letter to me that she was telling to the child that the word gya in Hindi, the alphabet gya, is knowledge. Gya for knowledge. Like, we jnana. So the child asked, what is knowledge? So now this is one of the questions which one has never even asked to oneself, that what is knowledge? We send the child to school for knowledge. So what really is knowledge? Now knowledge, of course, we understand this much, that knowledge is certainly not just the surface data which we observe through the senses and analyze by the mind. Ordinarily this is what we call knowledge, that I have observed certain things from the senses and then I continue to analyze it, and by analyzing I arrive at some kind of a system or a structure or a formal understanding about a subject, most of the time a workable thing. And yet this knowledge can be very inadequate. Take an example of somebody who, the mechanic who repairs the car. Now it's a very workable knowledge. And, when we have a problem with the car, we go to the mechanic. But this knowledge, his knowledge, workable, practical, efficient, though it doesn't really make us understand, or he cannot make us understand what really the car is about. And least of all, he can tell us about how to drive the car and who is the one who is to be driven by the car, who is the person who owns the car, who will be seated within the car. So there are many aspects of knowledge which we do not understand or know. Now let us take a very simple act, simplest of acts. I'm speaking, and some are listening. Let's try to understand this simple act, that in terms of knowledge. So, what are the things which are involved in this very simple act? And this is a very good example, because very often in everyday life we see people who hear but do not listen. And that creates so much confusion in this world. Similarly, there are people who speak but do not think. So they speak, and there are others who listen and who hear, but they do not listen. So now speaking and listening are not acts of the senses or the mouth or the ears. There are other aspects involved. When we speak or when we listen, now we can listen either by the left brain, which is picking up the signals, analyzing the data, putting bullet points, taking down notes. This is one kind of hearing or listening. There is another kind of listening which is a deeper listening, where the heart listens, it feels for the things. There is still deeper listening where the soul wakes up, when a speaker is speaking who can bring down forces of a different order. There is a fourth kind of listening where our consciousness is engaged with another consciousness. All communication is essentially a communication in terms of consciousness. So there are several aspects involved within a single act. Similarly, the speaker, what is his will? What is the recipient's will? By that I mean that why is the person speaking? Is he speaking because, he has to be, it's a professional job. A lot of people speak professionally because they have, at the end of the day, some money and name and fame. Similarly, when people listen, they have certain expectation. What is the will behind? Is it that my child, if I listen to a particular lecture, my child is going to suddenly succeed in all the exams? So, depending upon our will, our emotions, even the way our brain functions, the mind functions, And even at the level of the elementary level of the senses, by the time we receive the input, everything has already passed through certain filters. And what we receive is not knowledge, but fragments of information. And that information we again try to stitch on and create a dress which is an ill-fitting robe, and try to use it to help us navigate through life. So this, I'm speaking of a very simple act of speaking and listening. Now, when we look at the totality of life, we understand that, well, knowledge is not just about this surface understanding. There is something much deeper. And it can only be acquired by engaging our entire being with whatever we are doing. If our whole being is not engaged in the totality, then we'll never understand why creation. We won't understand the person who is living with us. How often, we meet situations, as a psychiatrist, very common. I meet people and, they seem to be doing quite well, but they don't understand each other. Why? Because they are using the mind but not the heart. And even while they are using the heart, sometimes the other parts of nature are not getting engaged at all. So we must understand that this creation, like a human being, is a totality. This creation is also a totality. As the great Upanishadic saying, that within the pind we have the Brahmand, and we have to learn to understand creation, the world outside, in its totality. So what I mean by this is, let's take a simple human being. So what are we? Are we just a block of body? Sometimes I use this paradoxical term. We treat our living bodies as if it's a dead body. Why? Well, we go to a doctor and say, this, my hand is a problem, my leg is a problem, please cure me. So the body has no say in it. I have no say in it. We don't consult the body. Why are you feeling the way you are feeling? Can I give my body the suggestion of healing? So I'm treating it as if it's a log of wood. And I've seen even people deal with each other physically. I'm speaking of very physical thing, as if they were just log of wood. See, how people elbow around, how they push smallest gestures. It's like they're dealing with nothing but a log of wood, because our understanding unwittingly is as if the body is just a mechanical something, like a stone or a piece of wood, and we are dealing with it like that. But we know that we are not just a body. We are also thoughts. We are also a mind, and brain is an equipment for translating these vibrations, or something which enters the brain and takes the form of words, speech. So the second thing we understand about ourselves is that we are also a thought. Thought means something which is in a subtler dimension of our own existence. We may know a person physically, but unless we know the person's thoughts, we will never really know him. And that's why when people who are carried away just by surface charm, they often fail miserably, because they have not understood what is the thinking of a person. Sometimes people look at a behavior and they don't know what is their thinking. Now a person may be very outwardly very sophisticated, but inwardly very crude, because he has learned sophistication as a way of life, simply because these manners pay him well. So there is a world of thought waiting to be discovered. But are we only thought? No, we are also heart. We are emotions. It adds to the whole, without emotions, life would be very dry, dull, drab-hued. So we are also emotions. There is a world of feelings waiting out there. And then we discover that we are not only feelings and thoughts, we are also will. We decide, we make choices. And then we also discover, as we proceed further with a human being, that we are also a soul which is in evolution, and there are things beyond the mind, what is known as the spiritual consciousness, and all this is my totality. Now, the same analogy applies to the universe, because what we are the product of evolution of what was there in the universe. What was there within it, within a chunk of matter or within atom, that it has grown up and become what we are. So the universe also can be seen, the world also can be seen and dealt with as if it's not just a block of wood or a stone, but as something which is living and conscious. Now it has very practical implication. Take for instance, we are taught that, Sri Aurobindo in one of his talks very beautifully said in Baroda, that Mother India is not a piece of earth. But how often do we not look upon the country as a piece of earth? Land. It's not land. It's a conscious power. Now, we don't discover the conscious power because we have not looked upon ourselves like that. So, when we start looking at, let's say, a simple thing like nation, or in a larger context, the very earth, when we start looking at it from that perspective, that the earth is a conscious, living being, it is something, it also has a soul within it, because we have a soul. So we have inherited it. We are products of this earth. Then our whole understanding and dealing with this earth changes. See, now we are going through all this process of, pollution and all this ozone layer and all the kinds of, we are spoiling the earth. Why has that happened? Because we have never looked upon earth, never looked upon ourselves as conscious beings who are evolving. We have never looked upon ourselves as spiritual beings, as beings who have a soul within. So for us, earth is also like that. We have looked upon ourselves as beings of the ego whose life is meant to just plunder and devour. So we look upon earth as resources which we can gather in a mass. So again, the more we discover within, the first thing why it is required to discover the inner worlds, the more we discover the worlds within, the more we discover the world outside in totality. Not only do we discover, we begin to manipulate, manipulate is a wrong word, deal with it very differently. Let's say, take an example from the ancient Indian way of life. So before everything, there was a prayer. Even when you went to a river, you prayed to a river. You saw the sun, you prayed to the sun, moon, stars, snakes, God knows what not. The cow, the buffalo, everything is an object of prayer or worship. Now, when we look upon creation from this perspective, then we understand that why it is so. Because a river is not just a river. And there are countless stories. River is a being. Now, when we look upon river as a real conscious being, Ganga is a Maya. Will we really try to pollute it? No. But now we use it like, more of a kind of, a cliche, rather than consciously connecting it with the being of the river. So the first thing is that the more we discover ourselves, the more we discover the reality of the world within, and the more we understand the world in its totality, the more we will be able to engage with it meaningfully. So we have a very nice incident in Ramayana, which I often narrate to some of our students also in medicine. So when Hanuman brings Sanjeevani Bhuti, so when he brings Sanjeevani Bhuti, and now everybody is in a hurry. So imagine the scenario in a hospital where a patient is almost on the deathbed and coma, and he's waiting for that master medicine which is going to rescue him. So that medicine is brought, paying a lot of money with a lot of trouble, effort comes, and now the next step is that it has to be delivered. So what is the usual process? Everybody is in a hurry. It's passed on to the treating doctor, the sister, and they administer the medicine. A similar scenario arises in the case of Lakshmana, who needs Sanjeevani Bhuti. And now Sugriv wants to rush, take it and give it to Sushen Ved and tell him, give this medicine, this is going to save him. But he says, hold on. He says, why? He says, wait. It contains Dravigun. But Dravigun is not enough. We need to invoke in it the true healing properties which come through a conscious invocation of these things. So then what he does is he invokes the healing properties in the Dravya, and then it is given and it has its magical effects. It may or may not have had its magical effect without it, but it's a more complete, a more holistic way of understanding life. Its practical implication would mean that if I am given a medicine and I have to take it, I take it with this idea, with this thought, with this prayer, with this feeling that may the entire universe and the Lord of the universe come in this medicine which I am taking. So then it becomes not a medicine, but it becomes prasad. So I keep telling patients who keep asking 100 questions about medicine, which after a time you get exhausted. So you tell them that, look here, take it as a prasad, it'll do good. Why? Because ultimately, if we really look who has put the Dravya inside the medicine, we will say nature. And what is nature? We go further backward and backward, we discover its nature is a front of a conscious force. It's only the front piece, the front energy, frontal energy. It appears mechanical, but we look behind deeper and deeper, it's a conscious force. So it has arranged things in a certain way. So this understanding which comes by understanding the totality of a human being, of a child, is the first step towards truly not only holistic education but also for the overall. We often say we want the child to succeed, but what is success? Is it just amassing wealth? No, he should be happy. We all say. Happiness comes from where? Happiness doesn't come by just material objects. We all know it. Very often we escape into these things because we are missing on the happiness. Happiness should be a natural state of existence, because when we really go deeper and deeper, we discover that bliss is the very stuff of all creation. Delight has built this universe, it runs as a sap, but we have not taught children to contact this delight which is innate in them. They are born with it. We have done everything to make sure they are cut off from that delight, because we have put bars between us and the joy. Joy is something which is given in creation. We don't need to, earn it by through labor. It's something which should be natural. And where does joy come from? Why we are missing upon it and using artificial means is because joy comes from heart. That is the seat of joy. That's where love resides. That's where beauty resides. That's where joy resides. And because we have suppressed the emotions, very often I have this issue with people, this civilization has developed entirely along left brain. Analysis, reason, success, fast, everything is like that. So we have missed out, because whenever we develop one side, it is at the expense of something else. So again, success is not just about developing the left brain and child getting 99.9% marks and doing very well. When people say that, my child is doing very well and he is a very big professor and all that, what is missing is how is he in his personal life? Is he really happy? Is he able to relate with his family well? Is he able to relate with the world in a nice way? Now, these aspects, some children have it because they have developed very holistically, but others don't have it. And their own life is a misery regardless of wherever they are, and they make the life of everyone miserable. Because there is an aspect of our being which has never been even acknowledged, let alone developed. Why? Because emotions are regarded as something which is interfering with the ambition, with the race for success, with the mental faculties, reason, analysis, etc. So we miss out on this aspect. Then there is another aspect without which we cannot have success, and that is passion. But we are never told or explained or trained or educated as to how to deal with this energy. In fact, passions remain where they are, and that's why we will see many brilliant intellectuals who have performed very well, but they don't know how to handle it. So they are very good in their work, but in their passions they are very crude, because it's just there, unrefined. Absolutely, it's like an asuric kind of humanity that we create. So first thing we have to understand it, there are several layers and parts and aspects within us which need to be acknowledged, let alone developed is the next step. Second is, we need to understand that all education is essentially a kind of empowerment. We are given with certain materials in life. It's like a raw product. All of us. This idea that some people are more lucky, some are less lucky, maybe if we look at only one dimension, like let's say somebody is born in rich family, may people say, oh, he's very lucky. We don't know actually. It may not be fortunate at all, because then you are not meeting the challenge of life. So first of all, our criteria are very wrong. Second is somebody who will be brilliant. We say, look, this very lucky, this child is too good. He can recite all the nursery rhymes as a 3-year-old. But we don't know. Let the child develop. Let's see how the heart of the child is. So all of us are given a certain amount of raw material. The combinations may vary. What we do with it is the journey of life. The journey of life is not to just, sharpen one's skill and, achieve things. This is our journey. We are all given this. And based on how we use that material, we prepare ourselves. If we believe the, Indian theory of karma, we prepare ourselves for the lives to come. How we use this raw material. So let's look at what are the raw materials given to a child. So one of the raw material is reason, for example. So how do we use reason and power of analysis? We are all the time busy analyzing sensory data and observing it very brilliantly. But what we are not doing with this reason is to understand and analyze our own nature. So a child never learns reflection and contemplation. Now when he doesn't learn reflection and contemplation, he doesn't know that there is within human beings an autocorrect facility. He misses on that. Why? Because he doesn't know that he can look into himself and discover where are the fault lines and rectify. So what happens? He depends on somebody else to tell him, the mentor, the teacher, or the wife or the husband. But that's a bad bargain, because till teacher and mentor it's okay. But when it comes to somebody personal, sometimes when people don't even listen to teacher, mentor, wife, or husband, then they have children at home. These children come to tell us that, look here, dad, you may be wrong. But how can a dad be wrong? He is a grown up person. Child is just a child. So we don't realize that because we have not learnt the capacity for reflection. And I feel human beings are defined by that. Human beings are not just, if it is a question of brilliance and cleverness, then foxes are extremely clever. You see how they have a pack and they attack even an elephant or a tiger or a lion doesn't know how to handle. They have a very coordinated, well-knit action. And if you observe the actions even of a crow, it's not just that the crow was dropping stones and the water came up. It was a very deliberate action, by the way. He knew what to do to make the water reach to a level where he can drink. So if that kind of pragmatic intelligence is what we are speaking about, then we are no better than a crow or a fox. But human beings are given this ability to detach our own awareness from ourselves. This is the unique thing about human beings. And observe ourselves as a student who observes something outside. And in the Gita, there is a very good term for it, swadhyaya. It is normally, interpreted as study of scriptures. But the word is swadhyaya. It is study, student of oneself, if you really literally translate it. So how to study ourselves? This ability to detach, the ability to look at ourselves objectively, the ability to understand what are the forces operating within us. See, it leads to so much of chaos and confusion because people don't have this ability. So what happens as a result? We are all the time observing somebody else's faults. We are all the time critical of people who are outside us but never able to look within. So this is just speaking of one faculty which is called reason. And if we develop the reason to look within, we would have done a great service to the child. And it can be done in several ways. Just to have a class which is a class of silence. Nothing is taught. Children are just sitting around. Now if we can't do it in class, parents should, okay, sit quietly. Nothing. So what do? Okay, you sit. So what happens after that? Discuss with the child. What did you think? That's when the child is confronting his inner worlds, his fears, his anxieties, his possibilities, his dreams, his imaginations. There is no time to stand and stare. Otherwise, all the time, the reason is turned outward. And worse still, downward. So the same reason is turned outward and downward. By downward, I mean in how to maintain the, succeed in outer life. But the reason can turn inward and upward. When it turns upward, it looks at the same phenomena, but tries to understand it from a deeper, higher, and a holistic perspective. So this is only about reason. Then we are given emotion. So what do we do with emotions? Turbulent feel. Most of us just put a cap over it. We are taught that if you allow emotions, you can't succeed in life. The moment emotions come out in any form, parents and teachers, everybody is very worried and what's happening. Why? This child is feeling love. The most beautiful thing that he is feeling is the worst thing, according to educators. But this is a time to educate and refine it. It is also a raw material. Obviously, we have never done anything for it, so this material comes out and we don't know how to handle this energy. It becomes chaotic, goes into the world and brings a lot of unhappiness, because it's the law of life that whatever can give us joy will also make us unhappy if we don't know how to handle it. So this is an energy we have not even acknowledged, let alone handling it. But emotions can be refined, love can be purified and lifted to a level where, the martyr who sacrifices himself for the country, he's an embodiment of love. The man who gives himself for the good of all creatures, as the Gita says, Sarva Bhuti Hite Rata, is an embodiment of love. The person who can sacrifice all of himself for the sake of somebody whom he loves is an embodiment of love. And above all, we see the highest example, which is the divine love itself, which sacrifices itself, becomes one with matter so that matter can be pulled up. and divinized. So, all these are examples of the beauty of love, the heights to which love can rise. But what is love for us? Do you love me? Okay, if you love me, maybe I'll love you. And the day you stop loving me, that's it, tata bye bye. Or else it is, I will love you on condition that you love me. Now, this is how there is no education at all of emotions. To learn to wait, to learn to sacrifice. Often people come and say, relationship problems. I said, yes, because it's not taught in school, it's not its subject at all. So, where they should learn? Home. But home, they get the same example. Quarrel, fights. Why? Over small trifles. Because neither knows that, well, maybe I need to sacrifice something within me to make this relationship beautiful and work. So, because our love is driven by the force of ego and lust and desire, it goes into the background. It says, okay, fine, you people deal with it. So, the energy of the heart, it needs education, it needs refinement, it needs upliftment, it needs an inward turn. And then we have a still more turbulent region, the region from where a lot of energy comes, passions. And passions we don't know how to handle. Passions can be sublimated. All success, whether in sports or any activity, come when we are able to associate passion with it. Why people are not able to associate? Because they are never pursuing what they are truly interested in. Children are pursuing somebody else's agenda. It could be society, parents, teachers, whatever. So they are not engaged in it. They've just been told, look, if you do this, you'll get a lot of money. So what happens if I get a lot of money? You'll be a successful man. So what happens if you are a successful man? Then you have a lot of, riches, comforts. You can travel wherever you want to travel. So what is that going to give me? Happiness. So it's not the fault of children. But they trust us like, we trust gods. Though we are not gods, they discover it much later in life. So, they trust us. Papa bol rahe hain, theek hoga. But they discover much later that I was put on the wrong track, and then they become aggressive and they become start fighting because they are revolting, and it's very difficult to understand. So first of all, we must discover what really truly interests me, the swabhava and the swadharma. Each child is unique, and if you touch that chord, then you will see all his passions will rise and he'll be within it. It's not about success and failure. It's about linking the passion to whatever we are doing. That's how all work becomes a play and a joy. Because passions give energy, that gives joy, it opens us. I mean, so many children, and when they grow up, and it's much more with women, and now things are changing, where they had passion, they had dreams, and they could never pursue it because there was a standard format. Earlier it was woman means she has to be inside the house and be a homemaker. Then later on, okay, some professions you can pursue. But others, no, not your cup of tea. What does a woman do who has the fighting instinct? She must be on the border, she must fly the fighter planes. But she doesn't. So whom does she fight with? With a husband. Because that energy is there. But it's completely never channelized, never given that earth. So passions, as they say, is like a fire. If you tend it, it will give you tremendous boost. It's like a booster rocket. And if you don't tend it, it will bring down the house that it harbors. And it will attach itself to all kinds of things. So there are people who have not pursued their passion, as it is called, their deep interest, and they can, success, brilliant mind, so they can achieve success. So what do they do with their passions? Because their passions are never linked to that. It becomes chaotic. So it goes into all kinds of, nowadays people speak about, pornographic and this and that, because the passions are there. They have never been refined. So the refinement of this energy is best done by linking it to our own true elan, our own true calling. And when we link it with that, it could be anything. It could be a spiritual pursuit like Buddha did. It could be running a kingdom. It could be becoming a shoemaker. How does it matter? Something which interests us, something which is done by the hand, something done with the head. So when we link our passions, life becomes beautiful. And one most important thing which we forget in all our education curriculum is, where is the switch that switches on the entire human machinery? You have a car. and you don't have the key. It's a wonderful car. And imagine every time somebody else comes says, I don't give you the key. Somebody will come, you carry a driver who will ignite, do the ignition, then you drive. We are much like that. Who drives us? The key to this entire human, I don't want to use the word apparatus, but the human being, human consciousness is will and faith. Two things of which we are not even aware. It is will which will make a choice where the car will go. So, very often when people say, how does it matter? Life is moving on, I'll move the way, whichever way they feel like they move. So, I said this, I tell them that it's very horrifying actually if you look at it. So, why it is horrifying? Imagine you sit in a car and tell the driver, take me wherever you feel like. Now, well, he may say, well, I'll take you to a, pub. Okay, fine. You have taken me there, fine. I'll enjoy the pub. Then where do I come? Sir, I live in a place nearby. I have to enjoy there, rest there. Why don't you come? I'm taking you. Okay, wherever you take me. This is a horrifying thing. To give away our will and faith in any hands of any forces. I believe that if there is truly something sacred in a human being, it's not intelligence, it's not even emotions. The truly sacred thing is will and faith. Never it should be bargained or bartered. This is a right given. Birthright is to make conscious choices. And even parents, none of us should choose for a child. We should equip a child to make his own choices. And by the time a child is 15, 16, 17, 18, the child should be so equipped that he can make the choices. So this ability, this power to make choices, because life will always present with choices. All life journey is about choices. Every moment we are making a choice. And what do we make the choice on the basis of? On the basis of faith. Inbuilt faith. If my faith is that life can be beautiful, my choices will be such that they will tend towards making it beautiful. If my faith is that life is nothing but, khao piyo khush raho. So then my choices will be based on how to really amass things which can feed my hunger. So faith and will are the two most important. In fact, the Gita even goes on to say faith. It says, because faith is even behind will. Based on the faith, the will is driven. So Gita even goes on to say that what is a man? A man is his faith. And this faith has nothing to do with religion. Religion is, let us leave it outside. It's become a bit dated. True religion is to discover the divine presence in everything. Religion is, God is not just in Mandir Masjid and, Girja Ghar. He's the omnipresent, omniscient reality. And all religion are meant to teach us that. A temple is only a place where we go and understand. But the moment a child wakes up to the sense of an omnipresent, omniscient reality, which is inbuilt within atom, within the universe, in the drift of the stars, galaxies, in the slightest emotion, in the waves that curl up upon the sea, in the streaming of the river flowing towards its source, towards its goal, in the mountains, majestic and high, then we begin to become aware that there is a greater reality and all universe is its expression. And to become aware of this great reality is what is spiritual education. This is a dimension which must wake up. Why? Because it brings in the innate sense of unity of creation. We cannot create unity by any artificial means. Whether it be a common language, a common code, a common custom, common tradition, all this unity is all flippant. It's just a surface thing. But the day we wake up to this thought, if not the actual experience, that there is behind all this creation, behind everything and everywhere, this omnipresent, omniscient reality, then every home will become a temple. Right now, home is home, a place to enjoy or fight. And for God, He is in temple. So for a few minutes I'll go, pray there, and then I'll come back to my same old story. God is not in my home. Nor is He in my business corporate office. We have shut the doors. He is the only thing which monopolizes over God is. Okay, am I audible now? There was a disconnection in between. So basically we have to understand that There is an omniscient reality, it's everywhere. Now imagine if I start treating my house as a place where God is present, not only in a small little puja room. The concept of puja room is over. But in my bedroom, in my living room, in my bathroom, in my kitchen, and in my office space, then life would automatically become beautiful. So this idea, that's why we see today that religion is breaking down and people are very worried. But actually speaking, why? Because God is stepping out of the temples, He's stepping out of the puja room. He's saying, no, I want to be with you, I want to be everywhere, I want to be as your friend. Don't treat me like somebody who is shut inside doors of creeds and formulas and rituals. He has wanted to be a friend. He is our eternal friend. But we have forgotten that, so we need priests, intermediaries, rituals, creeds, belief systems. But divine is an omnipresent reality. So this is where the spiritual education. And finally, the psychic education, which is about discovering that there is within us a deeper reality which is the source of all this outer formation. Our will, faith, intelligence, everything has emerged from there. And it changes from life to life, it comes so. It is something independent of the circumstances of our birth, independent of the conditions of our life, independent of our environment, but it is there, and its sign in human beings is that it always seeks for truth and beauty and good, or the secret sense of divinity. The moment a human being seeks these things, truth, beauty, good, he is marked out. He is a different category. And it is inbuilt. We are programmed for that. And when we understand that there is something within us which has an intuition that there is something like truth, there is something like good, something like beauty, something like a whisper of divinity, then it means the psychic education has begun. And now we have to only lead it along its own path. Somebody who seeks as truth, lead him along that path. Somebody who seeks as beauty, as love, as intelligence, whatever be the path, we have to lead it along those lines. But remind him always that, look, there is something deeper than all these things. This formation of nature, this personality, this surname, name, circumstances which we are seeking. So this, in a nutshell, is the totality of a human being. And the more we discover it within ourselves, we'll discover in this creation. If I discover love within, I'll discover love in the universe. And if I don't discover love in people around me, in this world, that means I have not made this discovery within me. If I see in this world nothing but cheats and rogues, then it means that basically something within me is a cheat and a rogue. Whatever coating and covering I may have, because I have not confronted the beauty of life. The moment I discover beauty within me, I will see it more often in others. So if we really want to, empower our children in the real sense of the word, these are the elements we must focus upon. Faith, will, intelligence, whether it's turned outward and downward or inward and upward, emotions, the whole world where we have it's a whole field where we see beautiful flowers entangled with thorny bushes. The world of emotions is like that. Some rare, exquisite flowers without which a garden would be incomplete. Imagine a stone house, that's what reason builds. Beautiful house, but not a single patch of grass, no flowers. Well, it looks very nice, but it's barren. So emotions are like that. They really add to the whole beauty of the landscape. So it's full of thorns. It's a path which has its own, like everything else, charm and dangers, but it must be brought out. Then we have will, we have passions, we have faith, and above all, we have something called as a psychic being and a spiritual being, and all this, and not to forget, the last but not the least, that we have a body, and the body is the house housing all these things. And if the body is neglected, beyond a point, we cannot have the play of all the higher intensities. You see, people have a brain fatigue when they read Sri Aurobindo. Sometimes they have this problem. Say, sir, we want to read. What to do? When we are reading him, we feel sleepy. So the advice is, keep reading. Why? Because your brain will develop the muscles. Sometimes when people ask that, why do we go to school to study? So children need to be told, you go to school to study so that you can develop the brain muscles. Just like we do physical exercises. So there are muscles in the brain. By muscles, not literal, but the neuronal network. It's known that these neurons evolve, they, more complex structures. You see, that's why people who have developed, taken care to develop these structures, they are not swayed by WhatsApp gyan. Whatever has come on WhatsApp is truth, gospel truth. They apply their minds, their brains, because they have taken care to develop it. They're not gullible enough to just believe in anything and everything that comes from any quarter. So we go to school to develop even these brain muscles. This is the base of the body. The heart. Literally, little excitement, little joy, little sorrow, and the heart begins to fail. People sulk, sink, or begin to beat with excitement. How can we really experience the or contain or hold the onrush of the forces of love and ananda? We say that, we don't know, we don't experience divine love and divine ananda. We can't even experience a little bit of joy. Joy and sorrow both have a common passage through the eyes, tears. So we need to make this body and brain strong, the heart, the brain, the limbs. When the divine force streams in and flows through the limbs, can we really contain it, or are they weak enough and they will break down? So the body is the base, it is the pot in which, the soil in which everything is coming up, or rather the body is the pot and nature is the soil, and all these are different instruments which are part of the pot, and all these are different seeds within reason, will, emotion, passions, faith, and we need to cultivate and develop these seeds so that the full tree can emerge. And that full tree is a beauty, it's a love, it's joy of creation, and it will one day bear beautiful flowers and beautiful fruits, because that is the seed sown in the soil of human nature. So this is the broad background. We'll stop here, and if there are questions, they are welcome. Namaste.
Thank you, Bhai. There's one question which has come which says that how do we understand thoughts, wills, mind, emotions, energy of our children? Often as parents, our experience blueprint takes over our interaction with children.
Yes, so first thing is that before we reformat the children, we need to reformat ourselves. It's true that. Thanks for reminding that when we ourselves have not empowered or developed our inner beings, all of us as elders, educators, how can we really engage with children? See, it is the irony of life and very unfortunate that by the time we are 25 and we have a degree and a job, we believe that now we know everything. One of the greatest illusions with all of us as parents, and which we discover through our children. No, we are not the know all of everything. But we believe that we know it all, and we have the wisdom to really guide the children, whereas we don't even have we are not even equipped to guide our own life. And children see through it. So, after some time we become a laughing stock. Because parents tell their children, do this and don't do this, and children say, we see what mess your own life is in. So don't give us jnana, you first have the jnana. So essentially, first thing, or at least simultaneously, we must discover ourselves, become integrated beings. The days are over when children respected parents because they are parents. When they respected teachers because they are teachers. When they respected elders because they are elders. Those days are gone. Now they respect authenticity. So I flip this famous Sanskrit saying and give it a different meaning. And we all know, we were taught as children, Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava. So its conventional meaning is, treat your father as, mother as God, and father as God, and teacher as God. Now, my own sense within it is, Matra Devo Bhava, oh mom, be as God the mother is, divine mother is, tall order. Pitra Devo Bhava, dad, have the infinite patience that the divine father has. Wise, infinite, strong. And Acharya Devo Bhava, oh teacher, educator, be as the divine educates us. How does he educate? Sometimes he will tell us a lesson, sometimes he will let us have a lesson. go through life, but he's always there, always available, always accessible. The child goes, or I mean, how the divine teaches us, we go through, we commit what are called as mistakes, but they are not mistakes, they are steps of the learning. So, we suffer from this zero error syndrome. And when parents come and say, my child, so I ask them, make the child sit outside and ask them, tell me seriously, you never made a mistake in life? And they are very quiet. And see, you have learned through your own mistakes. Teach the child how to learn. If you say he should never make a mistake, you are living in a fool's paradise. So rather equip a child that when he goes through life and does things, he has the trust that he can come back and talk to the parents. So what happens is, because of this do's and don'ts, children, what they develop is hypocrisy. They never come back and tell their parents because they are afraid that they will be scolded and chastised. So what happens is that many of these children, because they can't speak to their own elders and educators for fear of judgment, they speak to their friends, which is much worse. So at home they have a very nice sadhu bacha image, but outside they are completely different children. I mean, and it's not their fault. So what do? They pick up from these books here and there. They pick up, from so-called friends, and then they are misguided, misled. Cinema is there to teach us all that we should not learn. And therefore, later on we say, look here, that's why we wanted to be strict, but you didn't listen to us, so you became this. Rather, we should say, perhaps we were a little too strict that you couldn't have the trust to come back and discuss things with us and have a chance to learn. So all learning is through that. There is no evolution without error. There is a very beautiful line in Savitri, our errors are his steps upon the way. We use the word error, but it's a learning process. So by saying that a child should never make a mistake, we are basically saying you become a copy of what I am as an adult, which is most certainly never a good example to imitate even. So we must understand this aspect, and parents must grow up. I'm sorry to use this word. When mother was, somebody asked the mother, a teacher, how do we make the children grow up to come to our level? And mother said, excuse me, ask how do I grow up to be to the level of the child? Because the child is like a clean slate. We are fixed format people. So nothing new comes in. But children are still, wonderful creatures. Because they are so open, plastic, it's our task to make them bloom in a wonderful way, not to format them the way we are. So this is where I feel that, Acharya Devo Bhava and Petra Devo Bhava, we have to grow up. And the more we grow, as I said, there are parents who say all this psychic education, spiritual education is all nonsense. So I tell them, I can understand your difficulty because you have never discovered it within yourself. So take the trouble of discovering. And logically imagine, if there is no soul and spirit, then what are we really teaching the child? To go and take cannabis. Why? Because that's the only logical thing to do. If there is nothing called as the soul or a spirit, something greater and higher, nobler and more beautiful, then you take away the whole basis of morality. You have pulled the rug. And then you want to be a good guy. Why should he be a good guy? Because he will say that, look, if I'm a good guy, I'm paying all my taxes, but it doesn't give me money. So I have to earn money. So I start, telling a lie. Why? Because there is no basis of goodness. The basis of goodness is the secret sense of divinity in this creation. And if I have not discovered it, just too bad. I need to discover it. Then only I can meaningfully give it to the child. So parents and child, teachers and child, we are constantly both students and teachers. The child is teaching us even as the child is learning from us. And we are learning from the child even as we are teaching the child. So this idea should come, that we are constantly progressing. We don't become teachers just because we have a degree. We don't become all learned people because I have become a parent now and I have a good job. So I have a right. I have crossed over my boundaries of ignorance. So as long as that humility is there, we will constantly progress and make our children progress. So that's, yes.
So there's one more question, Bhaiya. It says that during this pandemic, children have become extremely lazy and are studying late. In fact, the pattern has changed because they're not going to school. So they're waking up the whole night and sleeping the whole day. How do we handle these changes?
Okay, the pandemic situation is, of course, unique, so these are special situations. But I must say that parents, because they have not given children this scope of physical education, you see, children should be, even with mask, parents should teach them. If you see, now we are able to go out. Earlier, in the initial month or 1.5 months, I understand they couldn't go out. But what prevents us from, teaching the children to do some on the spot exercises? To run, to jog, to do so many things, to help out in the kitchen. Now, basically, because our whole orientation was towards classroom studies. And so this is what they have to learn. To, if nothing else, you can do aerobics just at home. So I know there are parents who now, for the last few months, they take their child out and leave the child to run about, or do cycling or different kinds of activities. It'll depend upon the resources and availability. But definitely they will become lazy if there is no physical exercise. There is no stimulus from the world, and they need also the stimulus. So digital classes are all right, but they are not the only stimulus. One has to give different kind of stimulus to a child, different kinds of things which can engage, awaken interest. So basically it boils down to how much time we have. And unfortunately, again, most of us as parents ourselves are very lazy people. We go home, so what do? We go home and sit, and the next question is thoda chai lana, whoever is there. So no, this must change. So we must be living examples that when we come, how are we? What activities we engage in, children will pick it up. But anyway, this is a special situation. I'm sure, within a month it will go away. But it is time to rethink and make sure that we encourage a lot of physical education for children, which has been sadly missing. So this is, yeah.
There's one more question, and I think this is going to be the last one. That
Yes.
I'm scared about the world my child is going to. How do I manage my
Fear.
how do I manage my fear, and how do I handle equip my child to go out into the world?
Okay, this question has many aspects to it that, I'm afraid when my child goes out into the world. Yes, the world has a side which is very frightful side. Nobody can deny it. There is in this world terror and disease and, challenging situations. But teach the child that, well, this is first of all one side of this world. They should not develop a lopsided view that, there used to be an advertisement of Lay's packets that, don't trust strangers. This is a very lopsided view. There is, of course, there are people who can be difficult, and but I personally believe, this has been my experience also, and I'm sure everybody's experience. If we step back, there are more good people in the world. But yes, they are very average, which is okay. Means thereby that they have a little animal inside, and given a chance, they will, the animal can come out. So we have to equip the child that how to defend oneself if given such a situation. Supposing the child is in a challenging situation. So what does a child do? Do you make the child simply shrink back, or teach him, equip him to face the challenge of life? And one of the simplest ways to face the challenges of life and to develop confidence is again a good physical education, including martial arts. It must be taught to children that if tomorrow you go into the world, now this I'm talking of a situation which is more physical. A child should have the confidence that he or she can deal with, rogues and criminals. It's very unfortunate when I see, many of these girls, they don't know, and they are, moving just with sprays. Sprays are okay, but what prevents people from learning a thorough physical education that they can deal with it? Then there are other kinds of fears. There are fears of many unknown things which can happen in life. How do we deal with it? There is only one way, and that is to take life with trust. How does trust come in? By knowing that despite all the anomalies of life, there is something deeper which can be called as a divine wisdom, a divine grace, a divine consciousness which is there everywhere in everything. So I'll give you one story which I found very interesting as a child, and I often tell people. See, there was this boy who used to go through a jungle and go to school. And, often poor mother, she would carry the child. And one day she couldn't go. So she said, you manage your way. So the child said that, but it's a fearful jungle. What if I feel afraid? What if this animal can come, that can come. So the mother said, oh, you, okay, you don't know, there is a brother. He told for the sake of saying, you call him, he will come. So who is my brother? He says, Gopala, call him, he will come. So the child goes and comes back, he's very happy. Many days pass, mother has forgotten about the incidents. And he says, my brother is so amazing, I wish he could come and live with me in the house. So he says, why? What happened? He says, this Gopala, he gives me such a nice company. One day in my school, they wanted some milk, and I didn't know. I didn't have the heart to tell you because you will say, milk is deficient. So I asked Gopala. He brought milk, and this was so much milk that, we could feed the whole school. Now, leaving aside the exaggerations and the analytical side of the story, but the story reminds us that all the time, wherever we are, there is the divine presence with us. It's very unfortunate that we have not ourselves learned to connect with that, and we have not taught the children to connect with that. And that is the simplest of all education. All that we need to know, these very nice lines with regard to this. What is it? One of them is from Ramcharit Manas. Kalyug jog na jap na jnana ek adhar Ram gun gana. This is another where Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, he says, Naam is the adhar, basis of existence. So when we learn this simple thing we have not taught to children is to truly pray. Not pray a mechanical parrot-like prayer that come now it's prayer time. So children are doing, Om Jai Jagdish Hare, and they are looking all around. So that's not, and they are waiting for Hanuman Chalisa to finish. But to simply know that there are beings in the invisible, just as in the invisible world there are all kinds of fears, there are also beings who are there to help. And most of all, there is the divine being. And we learn to call. So it could be very simple. Simply they can learn a simple mantra like Om or Ma or Krishna or Rama or Allah or Christ, doesn't matter. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, whatever. This understanding that by taking God's name, He will be with us to make God our friend. Because there is no way we can master all the uncertainties of life. There is just not possible for the human mind to imagine every situation and equip the child. We cannot. Let's understand the inability of the human mind. But we can equip the child that in whatever situation, there is something which overrides the situation, something which is greater. And if we invoke that and stay in the right attitude, which means we trust that when we have called, the help will come, the grace will come. We would have equipped. But this cannot be done suddenly one day. It may happen. A child in a sudden state of, terror may actually invoke, it may work. Arth. But we have to, this also is part of the education. To understand that there is a much greater, profound, deeper reality. And it's not just there as a witness. We can call for it and it can help and intervene. And this is best done through so many stories. As a child, I learned so many stories. So it just came natural to me. If you call God, He will come. What is the big deal about it? It's not that I'm an irrational creature. Gone through the medical schooling and everything, Mother's Grace did well. Because you understand this belongs to a different domain. We need to understand our senses and analytical reason cannot tell us about whether God exists or not. It will lead us to agnosticism. But there is something within us, a faith and an intuition in things which are not but yet are. And one of them is the divine. And this sense of the divine, not just as an impersonal nirguna satta, which is okay, that is for spiritual pandits, whether God is nirgun, sagun, impersonal or personal, leave that aside for the pandits to debate and discuss. But God as a being, divine being, who doesn't care what name we call Him with, but who responds to our call. That we have to awaken in the child as a spontaneous trust in the divine. So this what is the ultimate solution for all fears. All right? Thank you. So shall we stop here?
On behalf of the entire MIS family, I would like to express my humble gratitude to Dr. Alok for always bringing such meaningful insights to our everyday life. Thank you, sir, for reminding us that we are dynamic, conscious beings who must aspire to education for the holistic meaning and empowerment that it provides us. The resources of faith, passion, sensitivity, joy, resilience, and love are certainly the anchors that help us tide over the most challenging of circumstances. This has truly motivated me to look within, and I'm sure it has done the same for everybody who has joined us today. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you so much to everybody else who has joined us on the for this program. And we would like to end this meeting here, and we wish you all a great night ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.